Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Man in the Arena, episode 3. This is Anthony Franciscini, and today I have a very special guest. She is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Capital One Arena. She's the queen of booking. She's a ping pong and cornhole extraordinaire. She's the person that hired me at Monumental Sports. It's Michele Powell. Thank you very much for coming on, Michele.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to start with how you got to the position that you are now. Obviously, it was a long road, but if you wouldn't mind just highlighting the positions that you had from out of college until now, it'd be wonderful.
I went to the University of Oregon and got my degree in sports marketing. So I'm a very loyal Go Ducks person. But after that, I started with Feld Entertainment, was a promoter for them, a marketing sales manager for them based out of Texas for a while. Then eventually got promoted to the Washington, D.C. market. But I was with them for about 4 years doing that, and then was offered a position for the Washington Wizards doing marketing for them for about 2.5, 3 years. I did that. Worked with the team when Gilbert Arenas and Caron Butler and Antoine Jameson were on the team. But I realized I have zero real interest in marketing, even though that's what my degree was in. And things I really did enjoy was kind of more the booking, the contracting and whatnot. So I went back to Feld Entertainment and was in their routing and tours department and started negotiating contracts with all the buildings throughout the country. So I did negotiations for Disney on Ice, Ringling Brothers, and then they actually purchased Monster Jam and Supercross and started learning the world of motorsports. So did that. And then I got a call and interest to come back to what was at the time Verizon Center and became Monumental Sports and Entertainment, and came back as the booking director and did that. And then I was eventually promoted into the AGM role, taking over event production and box office, and then eventually getting promoted into the general manager role. So now overseeing many other departments, including security and guest relations and numerous other pieces of the puzzle.
Right. That's awesome. A long road. Went from the Wizards back to Feld, back to here, and now you are here to stay.
Yeah, back and forth a bit, which is kind of a little bit unheard of in the industry that we are in, but definitely enjoy more like the logistics and the booking and kind of having two things to break it up, not just one doing it,
right.
Because one can definitely get frustrating on a certain day if it doesn't go well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we start with just the basics for anybody who doesn't know? And every time you speak about this topic, I learn like 15 new things. The basics of just how the regular season scheduling works for NBA and NHL. How far out is that put on your plate? Obviously, once it goes public, you've been working on it for months at that point. But just what is that process like? Obviously, you don't have to go into specifics because I know you can't, but just what is that process like?
Well, typically, in a typical year, which this is not right now, typically in October, so if it was a typical year, right about now, we would be getting into submitting dates for the following year. So right about now, we would be getting into submitting dates for the 21-22 season. And it would pretty much be submitting at least an average 70 plus dates to the leagues to hold on the calendar for both the NBA and the NHL. And they lock up your calendar pretty solidly, holding dates for them to create eventual schedules for 41 home games, 41 games for both the NBA and the NHL teams. But those schedules don't actually come out from the leagues for the NHL typically until June, and then for the NBA until typically August. So when you're looking at that aspect of it, it locks down your calendar for quite some time before they actually even put out a schedule. We only submit typically about 70 dates if we're lucky for each team, but they really want 80, 90, and some teams actually submit 100 dates if you're a single team building. There's just not enough dates in the year for us to be able to do that based on our calendar, because we also have Georgetown, and then obviously we have traditional shows that we play, from the Disney on Ices, the Monster Jams, the horse shows, the things that take up traditional dates on our calendar as well. So we're always struggling to find dates. So for us, you work very far out, but you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And that's a lot in part because, for the NBA, they have to you have to play the NBA finals, which traditionally would have been in June. And then you have to wait for the draft. And then you have to wait for free agency to start. And you have to wait for all of those things to happen before they're really going to put together a schedule, because all of that matters. And so much of it influences how TV goes and what all happens. So there's so many pieces that go into making the schedule that it's not just as simplistic as who's going to play when.
That is one part that I've always found interesting when you talk about it, is the NBA scheduling and how it always gets pushed further out in the year than NHL, because it's such a player-driven league, and you need to find out where all the big names are going before you're scheduling, I guess, a Friday night home game against them. You know that's going to bring in some money for you. So it's awesome to see that all of the work that goes into everything that's just starts with free agency, and that kind of gets the ball rolling for all of the venues.
It's a huge part of it, but and you have to think of those major matchup days, those Christmas Day games, those, again, I'm using all traditional concepts because, for obviously the upcoming season, which would normally be 2021, we have no idea whatsoever what's happening, because right now the 1920 season still hasn't actually officially finished, with the playoffs still going on in a bubble. But so that's completely left us in the air for 2021, and even continues to leave us in the air for 21-22. They have not requested dates because they can't even start thinking about working on the schedule for 21-22 until you figure out what you're going to do for 2021. So, and so a lot of things, right now it's a complete question. I think, when I go back to teaching and as we continue to discuss this, it'll be very interesting to be able to look at this and be able to say, like, hey, this is ending up what happened, but right now we're in the living moments of it, waiting to see what happens.
So how do you hold your calendar to make sure that you have dates available for potential playoff dates? Do you take into account going into the regular season the strengths of the tenant teams, or do you have to go into the season knowing that you need to hold X amount of dates, not book any concerts in late April and May, so the NBA and NHL have their playoff dates? Or how does that scheduling work?
So, by definition, the leagues are guaranteed all of their dates in the playoff window. So from mid-April, which is when the playoffs technically start, until mid-June, which is when the playoffs technically end, if you go into the Stanley Cups or the NBA Finals, the NBA and the NHL are guaranteed those dates. They have the first right to the dates. So you as a organization have a decision to make. You can completely play by the rules and not book anything. And if you do that and your teams don't make the playoffs, or your teams go out in the first round or whatnot, then your building will sit empty for 2.5 months and there's absolutely no revenue coming in. So that's one decision that you can make. The other decision is you can book things. But if you book things, you need to make sure you understand that if the leagues need that date, they're going to take it and they're going to bump your event, which causes great strain and great issues with the promoters that you have and the events that you have, because a concert can't just move. And of course you don't find out that in with a great advance notice, because you could be playing a game 7 in round 1 and your team wins, and now all of a sudden in round 2, the date that you may or may not have needed gets messed up. So typically what we do is we will book things within the playoff window. It has absolutely no disrespect to our teams. We look and I'm realistic. I know whether my teams are theoretically going to be good or not. And I'm honest with promoters when I sit here and say, hey, this is during the NBA finals, this is during the NHL finals, or this is during this round, this is during this round. And most of the promoters and people know also what your teams, if they're good or projected to be good, and what the risk is. But we book shows within it, but we also make it well aware in a contract that you have to have a contingency date. So you have to move as the promoter. You must move, and it will be at your expense if the league needs it. Obviously, we make the league aware that there's something on those dates, and we cross our fingers and we hope to the high heavens that they don't take the date. But again, it's so driven by TV. One league is a little bit more easy to work with because they have a little bit more flexibility. The other league is very, very hampered into the way that it is done on TV. And sometimes you sit here as a booker and go, "Are you serious? You can't move one day and work with me?" But then you have to look at it that there's whatever, 16 other teams also in 16 other buildings. And if you think about 2 LA teams in the same building, and look at it's not all about you.
Right.
So
right.
as much as you get frustrated by it, because we have had to move a concert, and we've moved many concerts and many games. Because if you look into it, we used to have the Mystics that played in our facility. We had the Valor that played in our facility. So we were moving events left and right because you have to schedule other teams and other things in the facility too. But you have no idea if your team's going to even make it.
Right. Could you, while we're on the topic, could you just discuss the basics of the infamous Lady Gaga concert that got in the way of some Wizards playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, that was the learning moment of life. So the Lady Gaga concert was it was back in like 2013, maybe 2012, somewhere in there, and when we booked that, we booked it in November of the year, so the fall of the year going into it, and the Wizards were rebuilding. They were projected to potentially, I mean, if we made the playoffs, it would have been a success. That was the goal, be around that 8th seed to get in, and we were rebuilding it. And I was looking at it, and we made the decision to play. And the Lady Gaga promoter at that time, they were not one that would take a contingency date. And we weren't really adamant on it back then. So we signed it without a contingency date. But the expectation was I laid it out. I knew it was second round of the playoffs, late second round of the playoffs, probably around game 6 or 7. And, if you look at the playoffs, how it was, we were hoping to be around an 8 seed if we got in to the playoffs. At that point, I want to say LeBron was either at Miami or he was still in Cleveland. So if you're the 8th seed, you're probably projected to play LeBron in the first round, to be very frank. Do you win that?
Unlikely.
Probably not. So, hey, it's a fair gamble is the way you look at it. So we went forward. The Wizards end up, and at the time we were, I want to say maybe 2-8 in the season. I mean, when we signed it, we literally were probably 2-8. We hadn't started off very well. Come back out of All-Star break, the Wizards get hot, which was great. They make the playoffs. They don't make it as an 8 seed. They make it as a 5 or 6 seed, I want to say, probably a 5 seed. They upset in the first round, and they make it out of the first round, which was great. So throughout the whole entire thing, as they were the second half of the season, they were climbing. I kept raising my hand, and I kept saying, just so you know, this is probably going to create a problem. We have this concert, and it's going to be a potential issue. And we ended up playing in the second round. The Atlanta ended up playing Indiana, and maybe we're the 6th seed. We must have been the 6th seed, but Atlanta ended up playing Indiana, and Atlanta was the underdog, and they had them, and they could have easily closed the series out, which would have made it fine. We would have been the home team in the next round. Life would have been going. We would have been great. Turns out they lost the series. They had a lead in going into this game. They go into the next game. They lose. I could go on and on because I knew the series in and out by every moment of it,
Right.
watching every minute of the basketball games. And we ended up getting Indiana. And then when we got Indiana in the second round, it ended up that Lady Gaga game ended up falling on game 6. And game 6 was home for us. So when it was home for us, that meant we were going to have to move Lady Gaga. So you make that decision to move it. And then the problem is you may not even play a game 6. Because now we're playing Indiana, who at that time was also very good. And the question is will there be a game 6? Will we be in the series? Will we not be in the series? Will one team sweep out? Will one team win in 5? So do you move the concert? But you got to make the decision. So we moved the concert. We couldn't find any date. We worked with them on every aspect of every scenario to move it back, to move it around. And between their runs and everything else, we just couldn't do it. So we ended up moving it up. We had to flip Philly, which became a massive problem. But we flipped with Philly. And we ended up needing game 6. Game 6 ended up in our facility. We ended up losing game 6, and Indiana won the series in our building that night.
Insult to injury.
Definitely insult to injury, but at the end result of it, we had a lot more games in our facility. The Wizards did well. It was great for the organization and the team from that side of it. It was a gamble, and we lost. And after that night, we never officially gambled in our own element. So it was, if you're going to do this, you're going to have a contingency date, and you have to know that going in. But every building has been into it, and the NBA has really changed a lot of the rules of what you can and can't do, because I used to call Cleveland after the year that they went to the finals with LeBron. They had a bunch of concerts in between games, like in the finals and in the Eastern Conference Finals. They booked every day in between, because you could, technically, based on the rules back then, you could. And after they went to the finals and the NBA was moving in and out of the building every day, they didn't like that very much. I used to call it like the Cleveland rule, because all of a sudden all the rules changed after that finals, because now you can't, technically, they don't want you booking shows on the off days in between the finals days, or they don't want you booking in between the 2 Eastern Conference Finals days, which before you technically could. And now if you do, you get massive fines, or you have to pay all of the in and out. And because they don't want you to do that. But, again, it's that one time your team makes that run. But you also know, like, if your team's a finals type of team, or
going into it what to expect, or you at least have a rough idea. Sometimes it'll bite you in the butt, but
and injuries can play a major part of it, obviously, or a major trade could play a major part in it. But you have a gist of if you're rebuilding or if you're a top contender, usually.
Right. When you mentioned the word promoter, for those who are listening who may not know what the role of a promoter is or who the big players are, could you just tell us who the big players are and kind of what their role is in and how they play with your job in booking shows?
Yeah, so from the concert industry side of it, promoters, the major promoters, the 2 major are Live Nation and AEG. Locally, IMP is a big promoter as well. There's also other promoters out there, Outback and CMN, that are depending upon what they're focused on. But a promoter is ultimately the person that works between agents and the artist, and then the venues, and is ultimately bringing working with the tours and bringing the shows to the venues. Many times, if you talk to a promoter, they're pretty much the insurance agent for it. They're the one that takes most of the risk in bringing the shows to the venues, and works with it in the sense of cutting the deals with the venues, working it and negotiating everything, and guaranteeing to the artist what they're going to be paid to go out on the road. So they kind of insure the money to the artist, they insure the money to the venue, and they're kind of that middleman in between. You also have promoters for family shows, like a Feld Entertainment, who produces all of their own shows, markets their own shows, and puts them out on the road, and they promote their own shows as well. And so they bring and do all the contracts with the venues and work with us directly on the shows.
Are there ever any events that do not have promoters?
You have one-off independent type events. You have some independent concerts that come in as one-offs, but they're still, like, ultimately it's somebody that works directly with that artist, and it is still like their promoter, their agent, like their person that is always with them. So I still consider them their promoter. And then you have just one-off events that come in and are just an independent event that
like the Pakistan event that we had with the Pakistani Prime Minister.
Like a Pakistan event, or like just a one-off event that hey, we're going to do this, and you wish they had a promoter sometimes.
Right.
Because the one-off events they just are more difficult. But like Jingle Ball doesn't necessarily have a promoter. It's iHeart that does it, but they're not necessarily a promoter that does it with them, but it's something that they, it's just a one-off type of situation.
Right. How is a show booked from start to finish? What are just the basics that are getting what are the steps that need to be taken from step one, the original call, to the show is playing tonight in the arena? What are those steps like from your perspective?
I mean, we're in a large venue, so it's a little bit easier for us in most cases. Most cases, you either receive emails or phone calls asking for availability of your venue, looking for a date, and you either receive that from the agent or the promoter asking, hey, can you send me avails, which is what we call them, for your venue, and they'll ask for either a specific day or a specific time frame, and then they try to put together the route of how the tour is going to lay out. So, Thursday night they're going to play in DC, Friday night they're going to play in Philly, Saturday night they're going to play in Boston, and so on and so forth. So then once they create that, so they reach out to us for avails, and once they confirm a date, they also then will start talking and asking for information about the layout of your facility, diagrams and drawings of it, just to understand your capacities, to understand and start working on your pricing and your levels of how many seats in each price level, and what your overall capacity and gross potential is of how much money can potentially be made. So they start working with the box office and our event production team. So I send them over, hey, here's my people's contacts there. They ask for deal terms. Hey, can you send me over our deal terms? Since we're where we are and established as we are, I mean, our deal terms are pretty set. I mean, most people will know them. But they'll ask, either some promoters that have worked with us for forever will be like, hey, just want to confirm this is the deal terms. Or some people will be like, where are we at with this or whatever. And so we finalize deal terms. Then they will eventually let us know. Sometimes it goes silent for months. I mean, they can do this and the show, you might not hear from them forever. Sometimes it will go really quickly, because sometimes then they'll be like, okay, well, we're announcing the show tomorrow, and you're like, okay. Sometimes they're announcing the show and the deals terms aren't even remotely set, and you're like, okay, well, we'll get to that at some point. And then eventually you'll draw up a contract. Again, this is with the long-term established promoters, your AEG and the Live Nations. For people that aren't established, it tends to be a slower process, but your deal terms, your contracts are all done long before you would ever let someone announce a show. You don't even go into that realm unless if all of that is buttoned up long before. And then once the show's announced on sale, kind of just keeps cooking. And then until once we get closer to the show, a couple weeks out, we'll start getting in touch with our event production department and start working through all of the different aspects of preparing for the show and the day of the show. And then the show comes in, and then eventually we will settle up all financial terms of the show on the night of the show.
Awesome. And that gets me to my next question. What does an end of show settlement look like? What are you bringing to the table? Who are you meeting with? Obviously don't get into the financials or anything like that, but what is that process like?
I mean, again, for a basic one, for a standard promoter that has been doing it for years and on a tour, it's pretty simplistic at this point. The event production team is kept them in touch with what their costs are throughout the day. And so we present a pre-settlement just to show kind of what money has been made and what expenses are coming out. And hey, here's all your invoices, because you have to present invoices for everything. So you present them an Excel document or a financial document that just shows this is how the numbers are laying out for the day. And it's typically can be very, very simplistic. Assuming you're all in agreement, then you're just waiting for that final box office statement once the box office closes for the final numbers to come in. And then you're just, kind of putting in the final numbers and then eventually signing it once you have all of the final backup for everything of the day. For shows that are, again, one-offs or don't do it every day or aren't in your facility every day, it can be a little bit longer. Sometimes you can debate some expenses. Sometimes people want to argue over every expense. Sometimes people disagree with expenses, and that can get a little bit interesting on conversations. But usually I really encourage our team to be upfront all along about what the expenses are, so that there's no surprises the night of, and there's no real major discussions the night of. We should have been discussing it long before the night of.
Right, absolutely. On a less educational note, what would you say is the most rewarding part of your job?
So for me, I think after all of the years I've been doing this, when I get back to the basics of standing in different places and watching people actually enjoy what we do, because been doing this for 20 plus years, and I will definitely admit that I fail to realize that the excitement that people actually see and find in the concerts and in the events and in all of that, because I'm just around it all the time. But if you stand at the entrance to our facility when people are coming in and people are just completely, crazy excited, it is, it's great to see. If when we at times upgrade people because we need to fill in some seats or something like that, and you completely make someone's day and they are about to like bowl you over or hug you because you've just, made a dream come true of moving someone from the 400 level down to the 100 level. And this is their first concert ever. And maybe you did that for a dad who brought his daughter to the first concert, or, a couple that, like just seeing the excitement is great. Or whether you're at a basketball game and, somebody has never been there and they're again sitting in the 400 level and you're like, well, why don't we bring you down just so you can at least see close to the court? And then even if you're going back up to your seat, like at least let me take you down there. And those are the things that in my job or in our jobs we can do, because if you just get out of your office and you walk around and you can see those moments, or you can hear people talk about it and somewhat eavesdrop, but you can take it upon yourself and just make those experiences happen. And believe me, we have some pretty bad days and some pretty crappy moments in our job. So when you just do that and no one needs to know about it, because you just have the opportunity to do it as an employee, it's a great opportunity, and it reminds you of why you do what you do.
Absolutely. The idea that you brought up of giving people who are sitting up on the 400 level, 100 level tickets, which I believe is called Santaclausing unofficially, at least that's what Sergio, the box office director, always calls it. When I was working in guest relations, that was probably my favorite part of most concerts, whenever that opportunity became available, where seats down on the floor were not filled and artists want them filled so it looks better for them. Getting a pile of tickets to bring up to the 400 level is a truly very, very exciting moment, and watching fans' faces when you give them 100 level tickets and they're wondering what the catch is and how much money they owe me is
that was always part. Once you convince them that you're not scamming them and you're not doing something illegal or crazy, and that you're truly being legitimate and you're not, once you convince them that you're not nuts. I mean, there is that element of things. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And, just people truly being grateful, which I think we need right now more than anything in this world, and just enjoying that aspect of it.
Knowing that you've been to probably a million bazillion shows at this point, which one, if you had to pick one, stands out to you the most in terms of atmosphere, production, etc.? It does not have to be a Capital One Arena. It could be when you were with Feld or when you were in Oregon or anything of that nature.
So I will still go back to the most energy I've ever seen in a building, period, was the night of the Pitbull concert in our building.
I thought you were going to say Stanley Cup, not Pitbull.
No, I wasn't there. Remember, I got married and it was gone.
Oh, that's true.
Technically, so I was there for the one game, but I was not, and I was there for all of the watch parties. But the Enrique Pitbull concert, when I stood in that bowl, I have never seen in my life so much excitement and so much energy ever.
That's amazing.
And not from it just being so loud and like crazy concert, obnoxious loud. It was pure excitement when Pitbull was on stage. And it literally blew my mind the whole entire time he was on stage. And I am not necessarily a Pitbull fan. I mean, probably know a song here or there, but I was absolutely dumbfounded the entire time. And I very rarely, and you know this, but most people won't, I very rarely necessarily make it out into the bowl. I mean, I'll go out for, if I'm lucky, a song or two, especially later in my career as I continue on. But I was spellbound by how crazy people were.
Yeah, that is absolutely saying a lot, that Pitbull was the loudest, best atmospheric concert that you've seen, because You've probably seen Prince. Have you seen Prince?
I have.
Michael Jackson?
I have not.
But you've seen the biggest of big names, and to say
Yeah.
Pitbull is the most exciting is a big surprise to me.
It was just insane in the sense of energy.
That's amazing. That's
So
very cool to hear.
And I mean, I'm not like, again, I'm not necessarily a fan per se of that. It just was, the energy was insane.
Right. And I mentioned the Stanley Cup run. I wanted to get what your favorite highlights, your favorite memories were from that run, being in the parade, getting a ring. What was your favorite part of that entire process?
So mine's different than a lot of other people's because, again, like, God, I was there, but so it was, we were so busy doing so many different things, but I remember different things of it. Like, obviously I was there for the different games and different aspects of it, but game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals kind of more or less started it for me, preparing for that, and obviously really hoping the Caps won, didn't lose at home.
I've heard a lot of people say that game 6 was the best night of the whole Stanley Cup run.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was by far the best element of it, right? So, like, we win. I think going into it, a lot of us were like, please just let's not lose here. And there was a lot of people from Tampa that I knew that were on the management team from there that were here, and I knew them from my time different places. So I just was like, like, let's win here and
take care of home ice.
And then, we won, and then game 7 was our first viewing party, and that was just an experience in and of itself. And we had a lot more people than we projected. Sprinkler heads were going off from different things, and I was pouring beer, I was selling beer, I was doing 7 different jobs, and all of us were doing different jobs, and there was we were doing so many different things, and I didn't watch any of that game. Did not watch 1 minute of game 7, other than like on a concourse walking by a TV and realizing it was the first period, then realizing it was the second period, and then realizing, oh my goodness, we might win this game, and what's the next thing? And then I was selling merch at the end of the night, and I ended up doing, I think, 7 jobs at that different night, and I was soaking wet from a sprinkler head going off and trying to fix it, and being in a flood and all this different stuff. So I mean,
another day.
Yeah, it was another day. So I think that it was like, there was so many things going on that by the time the Stanley Cup came, to me, it was like, okay, but I'm not one of those people. It just is a next, like, I don't know if I really, someday, maybe when I look back in my career and I go, oh my God, I have a Stanley Cup ring and I have this and I have this, I'll get there. Right. But, and then I didn't go to Vegas because I did and stayed back and did the 2 watch parties. I chose to stay back and do the 2 watch parties because I was getting married that week. And I wanted to, focus on my wedding a little bit. So I did the 2 watch parties, which were absolutely insane. And
is that when people started gathering on the streets and everything? It was getting a little bit wild around the arena.
The arena was insane. The amount of people, and you're trying to explain it. So the first one, like, a lot of our senior management team and people that worked the second watch party were like, oh, we're going to do it. And I was like, no, we're not. Cause like, I'm telling you, after the first watch party, we're going to do this. And I was like, believe me, I'm the one that's been here. Like, this is how it's going to go. And then I did work game 3 the night after my wedding. So I did come back and work that game. And then I left for my honeymoon, and I was not there for game 4, game 5. I was watching it on my honeymoon. But so, I mean, like, it, the parade, everything was kind of surreal to me. But for me, actually, the championship that means more to me, oddly enough, is probably the Mystics championship, because I was always so engaged in the Mystics side of it, with always having to move games off site, or I always would work every Mystics game I could as an MOD. And I was very proud and happy to go to all of their games and be part of their championship. And so, like, being part of that championship, to me, I just had to have a better connection, because I know the sport better, I understand it better, I know the people better. So like, that one was a lot more to my heart than hockey, because like, I watch hockey makes me too nervous to watch. I like to actually watch the game, and I get frustrated watching the game because I don't basketball, I understand totally going off subject really quick, but basketball I understand.
Yes.
The momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey I don't understand it as much, so I just get really like I pace the concourse when I watch hockey.
The cheat code to momentum in hockey is punch somebody in the face and now your team has momentum. That seems to be how it works.
There you go.
Just
So the
deck
whole
somebody.
entire time during hockey, I pace the concourse,
Mhm.
or I would have to sit in my office and work because I could not stand in the bowl, and like it made me go nuts. So I would pace the concourse versus like basketball and like where I was like wanting to watch it.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, the Mystics played at the arena for, was it since their inception they played at Capital One Arena?
Yeah, probably because yes, because in 1990 yes. So and then the year they go over to ESA is when they win it.
Yep. So another arena called Entertainment and Sports Arena, owned by Monumental Sports.
Nope, not owned. The city owns it.
Oh, the city owns it. We operate it. Sorry, my apologies. I forgot about that. Been out of the business since March, so I forget some things. But yes, operated by Monumental Sports. The Mystics moved over there this past season, and won their championship in their first season there. So pretty exciting. What's the status on their parade? Are they still planning on doing a parade? I know it was scheduled for the spring, but obviously COVID happened.
Yeah, I think it got canceled obviously because of the whole COVID thing, and then obviously now that they're not the champions, that there will be a new champion from this season. I would expect that it wouldn't happen.
That's a bummer. What are the biggest issues or mistakes that might have happened during any given event that you can talk about? NCAA comes to mind, but
oh, that's definitely one. That's probably the first one that I've ever seen. So the NCAA, there was definitely what ended up being duplicate tickets. So what
was the number on how many duplicate tickets there were? Do you remember? It was in the thousands, right?
No, I don't think it was that high. I think it was in the 250 to 500.
Oh.
It felt like thousands.
Yeah,
it felt like thousands. But the number wasn't that high. It just felt like it because it felt like it was never ending. Duplicate tickets obviously is a massive issue and problem. That I mean, especially when you're sold out, it makes it even more difficult. I mean, whenever you have engineering massive issues, I mean, I don't think you've been there since like when there's been massive backups, like if your sewage system backs up, or if there's massive issues like that, trying to deal with that is a major challenge. We've had numerous sprinkler heads burst when it's been so cold, and having to rework through that. We did that last winter, 2 winters ago, like 3 or 4 nights in a row, which is challenging. Pretty much, I mean, you figure out there's something every night, or at least quite often that happens. It's just a matter of whether other people know about it or don't know about it is always the question. But I mean, I think the best thing is we just constantly you figure things out and you continue to work together as a team on it. But it's practicing and learning from other people and learning from other things of, hey, this is what happened and this is what we've done, and just continue to plug on, because you want no one to know that anything's going on, and keep it as safe as you can.
Right. You have plenty of Michael Jordan stories that I have heard. I'm not sure if you can tell any of them on here, but if people do not remember, Michael Jordan was on the Wizards for, what was it, a season or 2 seasons in the early 2000s?
So I was not here when Michael Jordan was on the Wizards, but I have a Michael Jordan story from when I was in college.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was not part of the organization when Michael Jordan, I came in as the director of marketing for the Wizards right after Jordan left. But like the stories that are out there from when he was with us are definitely entertaining. When you meet up with different people that will tell them, some of the staff meetings when we all get going are funny. My only story was from when I was in college. I actually, I was a University of Oregon athlete. And so during the, when the Bulls played the Sonics in the finals, he was out in Seattle where I lived at the time. And I was working out in like I guess you would call it a country club-ish type atmosphere, gym. And he was in there with Ahmad Rashad, working out. And because I was in Oregon gear, Ahmad Rashad had talked to me, and then I had the opportunity to talk to him as well. It was a pretty cool experience because I was in college at that point. And, obviously anything at that point is pretty cool. Although I was a huge Scottie Pippen fan, and I met Scottie Pippen when I was in high school, because I went to school with Coach Carl's daughter. She and I went to high school together. So I had the opportunity when I was in high school to go to a game, and had the opportunity to meet Scottie Pippen after one of the games.
That's awesome.
So that's my more personal of like, whew.
Yeah, that's even cooler.
Yeah.
Before you were even working in the industry, didn't even have the cheat code of already being in the building.
Yes, that was way more important back then.
Right. Absolutely.
Never would I have known. Like, I mean, I had no idea this was the industry I would even have thought I was going into. Now I'm completely indifferent as people walk by me. But I do remember what it was like, and I have a picture to prove how big of a smile you can have on your face when you have that moment. So, and how geeked out you can absolutely be. So I do understand as people like completely freak out.
Right. As someone who has done so much in the entertainment and sports industry at this point, and venue management especially, what would you say your goals are moving forward as of right now?
Always love that question. So my goals have continued to shift because I don't know if I've ever really, everybody asks you that question of what do you want to do next? And I don't know if I never ever really knew what I wanted to do in the first place. So if you don't know what you want to do in the first place, don't feel bad. Because I thought, I wanted to do marketing and realized 5 years in, I absolutely didn't want to do marketing. Then I thought I want to be, hey, I like this. And then I told myself I never wanted to work in an arena again because I didn't want to work the hours and whatnot. And been doing that again for 10 years and for some odd reason keep doing it. And then I was like, oh, I never want to be a GM. And yet here I am being a GM. So I think the one thing I will say, there's two things I think I want to do, which I still don't know if I want to do. One thing I firmly know I want to do is I want to continue to focus on teaching and growing the younger coordinators, managers, and working on like leadership and growing the staff. I think, between teaching at GW, the MSc university program that I'm focused on, and just some of the teach and learns and the stuff that we do, not necessarily only hearing my opinion, because I believe there's so many other opinions and better opinions that you can hear. But I think that giving people an opportunity to learn and experience and grow is the most important thing. The industry, there is definitely people that have been in this industry forever, for a very long time, but there's people, the younger generation is coming up, and it's not that the older generation does it right. We need to continue to grow and look at the experiences and how do we continue to make it better. So my first and foremost focus is on educating and giving people an opportunity, and that's number one in my focus. I think I demonstrate that. I hope I demonstrate that constantly, and that will be continuing wherever I go as to what one of my main priorities is. After that, I think eventually I would like to go and to like a smaller facility, potentially even a college facility, and look.
Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, the gentleman that runs that facility is a bit older, and I'm looking forward to him retiring someday. But he's made it very clear he will be there until pretty much the day he dies, because it's the definite job to coast out to. But I think, something to that extent, because I think then I could also potentially teach, but also be there or be in like a smaller market, mid-market, but potentially one type team city. I like having my foot in the game. I don't want to be completely not involved or engaged in like an NCAA type tournament building, or like a building that has NBA or NHL or a tenant team, but not be 300 plus type days a year crazy. That would probably eventually where I would want to coast out to.
Right.
Use
My
your
retirement,
experience.
my retirement job.
Right. Use your experience, dumb down your hours a little bit, and get some new experience, and then hopefully pass on some knowledge to many, many
Correct.
other people who could use it.
Correct.
I know you have to go shortly, so I am going to end this with some rapid fire questions,
Oh,
if you
Lord.
do not mind. Just answer as quickly as you can. Obviously, there is no scoring, so if you don't, there's no punishment. Are you ready?
What if I said no?
I would still ask.
Okay.
First question, who is your favorite wizard ever?
Gerard Butler.
Favorite Oregon Duck athlete ever?
Joey Harrington.
Most famous person?
Other than myself, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Most famous person in your cell phone? It's a thinker.
Avi Story, maybe, a basketball player, one of our old Wizards.
Cool.
I don't know.
Favorite TV show?
So right now, Say Yes to the Dress.
My wife as well. Rough estimate on how many Starbucks iced teas you've had in your life?
Oh, Lord. 7 a week times
Many weeks?
10 years.
Somebody will do the math. Somebody will do the math on that. Place or restaurant that you miss the most since COVID?
I don't even know. A lot of million. Momiji, maybe.
Favorite WWE superstar?
Oh, Randy Orton.
Randy Orton. Big RKO gal. Favorite musical artist?
Josh Groban.
What's your dream meal?
Oh, pizza.
Favorite vacation spot?
Caribbean.
Would you rather have unlimited money or have unhealthy food not affect your health?
Unhealthy food not affect my health.
Agreed. Final question, not even a question, is say something positive about bobblehead giveaways. I know it's a challenge.
They make fans happy.
There it is. There it is. They sure do. They don't make us happy, but they do make fans happy. That's a sacrifice we have to make.
And they're great for decor on your office shelf.
They sure are. Well, that is all the questions. That is all the questions that I have. Thank you very, very much for doing this. I greatly appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you,
Have fun.
Michele.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.